So let's start here. Imagine someone is in the hospital and they've been told they only have a few days left to live. What do you imagine are the things they would articulate as significant as they reflected upon their life? In other words, when facing death, what do people identify as most important? I want to give you a few moments to reflect on that question. What comes to mind? When you're ready, go ahead and put your responses there in the chat. When facing death, what do people identify as most important? Family, right off the bat. Loved ones, family, memories of time spent, family and forgiveness. Thanks, Michelle. Faith. That's right, Stephen. Legacy. Family, righting wrongs, faith. Okay, family regrets, kids, yep. Family accomplishments. So we're all hitting on the same themes. How time was spent, thanks, James. How I've lived, okay. Okay, great, thanks for those responses. Now, I want you to reflect on this past week, the last 7 days, and how you have invested your time. Where have you put your energy? Take a few moments to do an inventory of the things that you've done, people you've encountered. Where have you put your time these past 7 days? Where has your energy gone in the last week? Go ahead after you've had a moment and put those responses in the chat feature. Be as honest as you want to be. Learning, working, reading. Okay, 7-month-old taken care of. Adding value to people, working out, next flow. Yeah, lots of preparing for school. Okay. Work, family, work and saving. Lots of work in there. Lots of parenting. Lots of tending to those in our lives. Okay. Self-care. Okay. Thank you for your responses. I have from time to time take a really close inventory of where I spend my time. So I'll take a two-week chunk and I'll block it out into 15 minutes and I'll just keep a record of where I keep my time. And I'm always surprised where I actually spend a lot of my time. It's a good practice that I've gotten into. And part of the reason that I've done that is because of tonight's topic. I've spent a lot of time in hospitals over the past 2.5 decades. Before I joined ACU, I was in congregational ministry. I was a minister for almost 20 years in the Seattle and in the Portland area before that. I've lost count of how many funerals I have done. I've lost count how many days I've spent sitting at the bedside of people who are dying. It's a part of being in ministry. As a pastor, you are with people in their final days or in days where they're really, really sick, and it might be their final days. And I'm not sure what it says about me, but being with people when they're sick or in their last days was some of the most meaningful work that I did in just over 18 years of ministry. When I left a hospital after a visit with somebody, or spending time in the living room with a family in grief over the death of a loved one, it was one of the few times in my career as a pastor, over 18 years, one of the few times that I felt like I had something to offer the world. It was one of the few times that I felt like I did something. If you gave me an option to either officiate a wedding or plan and lead a funeral, 10 times out of 10, I would choose a funeral. And I'm not kidding. I've spent a lot of time wondering why this is the case, or what's wrong with me. And I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I think at least part of the reason why this is the case, when people are really sick or they know they're in their last days, there is zero pretension for the most part. It's really hard to project some version of yourself that isn't true when you're facing the end. You get the honest, raw, real deal when people are in their final days. More times than not, the walls come down and you have a fairly clear view into people's authentic self. And as people talk about what regrets or things for which they're grateful, do you know what they talk about? They talk about the things you listed a minute ago. They talk about children that they're proud of. They talk about a conflict they wish they would have resolved. They talk about friends that stuck by them through thick and thin. And when you ask someone who's close to death what they would do with one more day, what do they say? I'd like to have one more meal with family. I'd like to gather around a table and tell stories. I'd like to laugh. They talk about sitting and having a cup of coffee with their spouse. No words need to be said, just sit and be present. They talk about one more trip to their favorite park or river or mountain, one more chance to sit in a place of significance and soak it all up. And you know what people don't say? They don't say, I really, really wish I would have stayed on top of my work email just a little bit better. Or I really wish I would have spent more time outside of my work hours answering work calls and emails for work. I gave way too much of my evenings and weekends to my family. I really wish I would have dedicated more to work. People don't say these sorts of things. They don't say, I wish I would have scheduled more meetings. And none of this is a surprise, right? I mean, we know this. Most people, when asked what matters in life, they'll talk about family, they'll talk about friends, they'll talk about faith, they'll talk about being connected to their own sense of self. So let me ask again, if you were to identify things in your life right now that matter to you, what comes to mind? Take a few moments, likely won't be different than the previous list, but there may be what really matters to you in this season of life. If you're comfortable, go ahead and type it up in the chat feature. Family and friends, we're going to see a lot of those, I bet. God, family, friends. Family growth, advocacy. I love the advocacy, Monique. It's great. My kids' hearts. Oh, we've got a pet in there. I saw a dog. That's great. Self-care, resolving petty conflicts. Okay. Family and relationship with Christ. Okay. None of this is a surprise, right? Is your life arranged in such a way that the stuff you care about actually has priority? Or is the stuff you care about consistently pushed to the back burner? Or to put it another way, if you were to find out that you only had a few days left to live, would you regret not putting more time and energy into that which you think matters most? Maintaining a balance where we invest in the stuff that we think ultimately matters is not easy. The fact of the matter is, this is just the truth we have to live with. We cannot give 100% of our energy to things that we care most about. Life, for nearly all of us, does not afford that privilege. We have to pay the bills. We have to put food on the table. There are things in life that feel pointless, meaningless, and even life-taking, but we don't have an option, right? We do have emails that we have to answer. Some of us have spreadsheets we have to work on. We all have to sit at the DMV for hours on end at one point in our life. We have to wait in line at the post office, right? These things aren't what we really wish we could do more of when we're in our final days. We have stuff that we cannot avoid. And I don't want you to think that I'm creating some fantasy land that doesn't exist. I'm fully aware of the limitations that life brings our way. But there are things we can do to help tip the scales just a little bit, ever so slightly, back to a more balanced life. There are practices and postures and commitments that we can adopt that help us attend to that which we think ultimately matters. And I want to give us just a few ideas, a few possibilities take or leave any of these. One is identify ways to set some boundaries around work life and engage with people you love. Let me also add, being that we're here at an institution of higher ed, to find ways to set boundaries around your school life and engage with people you love. When you're with your family or a group of friends, I want to invite you to put away your phone, turn off the email notifications, choose to be present to the people that are right in front of you. You may not have the luxury to always do this, but find an evening or two a week where you resist the urge to work from home or respond to work. It'll be there tomorrow. The world's going to keep spinning if you don't do it. And in the same way, for those of you who are entering or continuing your educational journey, as a faculty member here at ACU Online who grades papers, I want you to hear me say this. It's okay to take a B. It's okay to even take a C sometimes. You can spend every waking moment working on assignments, discussions, and papers, but hear me out, you shouldn't. Give yourself the freedom and the grace to walk away and be with the people in your life that you love, the people that need you, the people that you want to connect with. Take time away, walk away from the school so that you can recharge and take care of yourself. Ask yourself this question. If tomorrow you found out that you had a week to live, what regrets would you have? Maybe it is a broken relationship that needs mending. Maybe it's a hobby that you've lost. Whatever it might be, when you ask yourself that question, what comes to mind? And what are some small practical steps that you could begin to take that might address that thing? Maybe it is time to send a card or a text or a phone call to someone in your life that you need to reconnect with, or maybe the relationship needs mending. Maybe you need to find time to dust off the basketball or running shoes or fishing poles or ping pong paddle and step back into practices that gave you life. I love the outdoors. The Pacific Northwest, as I mentioned earlier, my friend Stephen, is home to me, and I've spent a lot of time in the Cascade Mountains and the rivers of Washington and Oregon. And I don't know if you're up on geography, but East Dallas looks nothing like the Pacific Northwest. Nothing. But recently I've committed to take a walk every day. And most days I do it without headphones. I just walk and listen and think. And just this morning, while I was taking my walk, doing laps at our neighborhood park that's a quarter mile away, if that, I noticed the birds chirping, and I noticed the breeze. I noticed the leaves moving back and forth in the trees. And again, it's not the Northwest, but it did something for my soul. It was good for me to be in that little bit of nature, something about being outside, connected with a part of me that I'm not able to embrace as often because I live in East Dallas, but there is an opportunity. And I'm telling you, those small things matter. And that's the point, right? Whatever it might be, if you know today that there are things that give you life, why not take a small step forward in addressing that thing before it's too late? Another option I want to throw out there, if you have this option, take a sick day to be with someone you love and care about. And I'm dead serious about this. I'm constantly telling my colleagues and people I work with, take a mental health day. schedule a day to not work and spend the entire day with someone you love, or spend an entire day just to rest if you're able. You'll never regret not working to be with someone you love, but you're very likely to regret working instead of spending time with those you care about. Watch less screens. Right? This is a no-brainer. Maybe it's a no-brainer. I say it all the time. I'm not as good at practicing it as I say. And I know it's ironic, right? That I'm telling you to watch less screens while you're watching the screen, listening to me, but I am serious. Turn off the television, turn off the computer, put down the phone, take off the Apple Watch, read a book, go on a walk, sit on a park bench, do nothing, right? All the time in the hospital over those years, not once did I hear somebody say in their final days, I really wish I would have watched more TV. Not once. There are a lot of things to admire and love about the life and ministry of Jesus. And I'm not just saying that because you have to, I mean that. But the thing that consistently draws me to his life is his willingness and intentionality to be present to the person that's right in front of him. Throughout his ministry, everyone else, his friends, his enemies, onlookers, they all have better ideas of what Jesus should be doing with his time. But over and over and over again, he chooses to prioritize the person that's right in front of him, the one that's in his midst. Whether they were sick or an outcast, a friend, or even someone who considered him an enemy. And this matters for tonight's conversation because more times than not, 99.9% of the time, I'd argue, that which connects with us, those things that we want to look at the end of our days and say they matter, that which connects with us is a matter of presence. It is being present with a loved one, or a loved one being present with us. It is being present with our own sense of self and how we're wired and what brings us life. It is being present to that which we believe God is up to in our midst. These are the things I think that matters. So I want to ask, what could you do tomorrow, Wednesday, April 27th, or next week as May begins? What could you do to give more attention to that which you believe ultimately matters? What small adjustment can you make to your daily rhythm to invest more in the stuff that you really care about and that you know, when asked, what matters? Right? You may not be able to make sweeping changes to your life, but I bet you can find small ways, even a minute or 2 or 5 minutes here or there, to be the person today that future you would really want you to be. So this isn't about bucket lists. I hope you hear me saying that. This isn't about doing the dream vacation or once in a lifetime opportunities. This is about doing the very small things to be present to the people and world around you, to be present with yourself and that which God might be up to, so that at the end of the days you can say, I lived a pretty good life.